We are rolling out of the parking lot of the historic First Presbyterian Church, getting ready to capture another incredible cross-section of Anchorage, Alaska. Go ahead and take a right turn out of the lot, heading down West 10th Avenue. We're starting our drive today, right on the southern edge of the original town site, in a beautiful, deeply historic neighborhood known as the South Addition. As we turn right onto East Street, heading south, I want you to take a look at the homes tucked beneath these massive, towering birch and spruce trees. Unlike the heavy, blocky, highly engineered concrete commercial buildings we see just a few blocks north in the main downtown grid, the houses here in the South Addition have a completely different, much softer character. Many of these homes date back to the 1930s and 40s. You have to understand that when Anchorage first exploded into existence as a muddy, chaotic railroad tent city in 1915, this specific area was just untouched, wild boreal forest sitting past the original firebreak of the Delaney Park Strip. But as the city stabilized, as the railroad was completed, and as people decided they actually wanted to lay down roots and raise families here on the remote frontier, they began clearing this land by hand to build permanent, charming homes. Today, because it sits directly adjacent to the park and downtown, it is one of the most highly coveted, deeply established residential pockets in the entire state of Alaska. We are making our way south on East Street for just a few blocks. Notice how quiet, shaded, and peaceful it feels here. You can almost forget that you are driving through Alaska's largest metropolitan hub. But that illusion of total, safe domesticity is constantly tested. Even in these tightly packed historic neighborhoods, you have to keep your eyes scanning the sidewalks, the manicured lawns, and the shadows between the parked cars. The moose population in Anchorage does not care about property lines, fences, or historic zoning laws. They treat these tree-lined streets like a massive, all-you-can-eat salad bar, completely ignoring the traffic as they strip the leaves off the birch trees in the front yards. In the late spring, it is incredibly common for a 1,000-pound cow moose to simply walk into a yard right here on East Street, lay down in the grass, and give birth to her calves. When that happens, the neighborhood effectively goes on lockdown. An aggressively protective mother moose is one of the most dangerous animals on the North American continent, and residents will literally have to use their back doors or call out of work simply because a moose has claimed their driveway. It is a constant, humbling reminder that in Anchorage, the wilderness is always just outside your front door. Get ready to make a left turn onto West 15th Avenue. As we turn east onto 15th, the road opens up, and we are transitioning away from the quiet residential streets and moving toward the major commercial arteries. We are only going to be on 15th for a very short stretch, about a tenth of a mile, before we make a right turn onto C Street. All right, make that right turn onto C Street, heading south. Settle in and get comfortable, because C Street is one of the most vital, heavily traveled north-south corridors in the Anchorage Bowl. We are going to be driving straight down this road for nearly a mile. As we head south, the landscape is going to shift dramatically, taking us from the historic downtown boundaries straight into the sprawling, corporate heart of Midtown. But before we hit the high-rises, we are about to cross over something incredibly special. Look ahead as the road dips down slightly. We are crossing over the Chester Creek Greenbelt. If you look to your left or right as we pass over the water, you will see a dense, thick ribbon of forest completely cutting through the urban grid. Anchorage is famous for its trail system, and the Chester Creek Trail is the crown jewel. It is a paved, multi-use path that runs for miles, following the winding creek from the foothills of the Chugach Mountains all the way to the coastal trail on the Cook Inlet. This greenbelt is not just a place for humans to go jogging or biking on a summer evening. It is a massive, highly active wildlife corridor that cuts right through the absolute center of the city. Black bears, red foxes, bald eagles, and moose use this continuous strip of forest to navigate the Anchorage Bowl without ever having to cross a major highway. In the late summer, despite being entirely surrounded by concrete, traffic noise, and thousands of people, Chester Creek actually sees a run of wild Pacific salmon fighting their way upstream from the ocean to spawn in the very waters they were born in. And in the dead of winter, when this creek freezes solid and the snow piles feet high, the city brings in heavy equipment to groom the trail specifically for cross-country skiing. You will even see people out there ski-joring, which is a wild Alaskan sport where a person on cross-country skis is pulled at high speeds by a team of sled dogs. It is a perfect example of how this city embraces the extreme environment rather than trying to pave over it. As we climb up out of the Chester Creek dip and continue south on C Street, crossing Fireweed Lane, the architecture completely changes. We're officially entering Midtown Anchorage. Look at the towering glass office buildings, the large hotels, and the massive bank headquarters lining both sides of the street. If you had driven down C Street in the 1950s, almost absolutely none of this would be here. It was mostly dirt roads, scattered homestead cabins, and dense, unforgiving forest. The Midtown you are driving through right now was built almost entirely by the Arctic oil boom of the 1970s. When the Trans-Alaska Pipeline was approved, billions of dollars flowed into the state, and Anchorage became the logistical, financial, and corporate headquarters for the massive petroleum companies working the North Slope. They needed massive amounts of office space, and downtown was simply too constrained by the ocean and the military base to hold them. So, the city aggressively expanded south. The glass and steel towers you are looking at were built to house the executives, the engineers, and the geologists who manage the flow of millions of barrels of crude oil from the Arctic Ocean down to the port of Valdez. The wealth generated during that era permanently transformed Alaska's economy, eliminating the state income tax and funding the infrastructure of this entire city. You are driving through a neighborhood built entirely by black gold. We are coming up to a major intersection. We need to get into the left lane because we are going to make a left turn onto West Benson Boulevard. Benson is a massive, multi-lane, one-way thoroughfare heading east. It is paired with Northern Lights Boulevard, which runs one way to the west just a block away. Together, they form the absolute busiest commercial couplet in the state. As we turn onto Benson Boulevard, you are instantly swallowed by the intense retail and commercial density of modern Anchorage. But we are going to make a very quick stop right here in the heart of Midtown to illustrate a point. We are pulling into the parking lot of the Walmart Supercenter, right off a street. Go ahead and navigate through the lot, finding a clear path. Now, a Walmart might seem like the most mundane, average thing in the world to see on a driving tour. You can find them in every city in America. But here in Alaska, a massive big box store like this represents a staggering, terrifyingly fragile logistical miracle. Consider how isolated this city really is. We are entirely cut off from the lower 48 states by a massive, rugged Canadian wilderness. You cannot just casually drive a fleet of delivery trucks up here from Seattle in a day. Almost every single thing you see on the shelves inside this massive store, the fresh produce, the electronics, the clothing, the heavy hardware, arrives by sea. It comes up on massive cargo ships that dock at the Port of Alaska, located just a few miles north of here in the Cook Inlet. But the Cook Inlet is not a calm, easy, predictable harbor. It boasts the second highest tidal range in the entire world, with water levels fluctuating up to 40 feet in a single day. The currents are incredibly violent, the water is completely opaque with glacial silt, and in the winter, the inlet is choked with massive, floating chunks of glacial ice. Navigating those massive cargo ships through the inlet to supply these stores requires incredibly skilled marine pilots. Furthermore, this supply chain is terrifyingly vulnerable. If a massive earthquake were to damage the port facilities, or if a single highway connecting the port to the rest of the state were to be severed by an avalanche or a rock slide, the grocery store shelves in this entire city would be completely empty in less than a week. There is no backup plan. Every time an Alaskan walks into a store like this and buys a fresh avocado or a gallon of milk in the dead of January, they are benefiting from one of the most complex, hard-fought, and vulnerable logistical supply chains on Earth. All right, let us exit the parking lot and get back onto East Benson Boulevard, continuing our journey eastbound. We are going to be on Benson for a solid 2 miles, driving all the way across the Midtown Commercial District. As we drive, look straight ahead, directly out the windshield. On a clear day, your view is completely dominated by the Chugach Mountains. They form a massive, jagged, imposing wall of granite and alpine tundra that borders the entire eastern edge of the city. The contrast between what is inside the car and what is outside the windshield is profound. You are driving down a busy, paved, multi-lane road, surrounded by fast food restaurants, strip malls, traffic lights, and heavy traffic. But just a few miles straight ahead of you is a 500,000-acre state park containing some of the most rugged, unforgiving, and untouched wilderness on the North American continent. The Chugach Mountains are home to massive brown bears, packs of gray wolves, wolverines, and doll sheep. Alaskans live their lives suspended right on the razor-thin boundary between modern convenience and absolute primal wilderness. You can finish a shift at a high-rise office building here on Benson, drive 15 minutes east, strap on a backpack, and disappear into a landscape where humans are no longer at the top of the food chain. As we continue east on Benson, crossing over the Seward Highway, notice how the traffic flows. The drivers here have to be aggressive but predictable. Let me tell you about what happens to this exact road when winter hits. This wide, multi-lane asphalt road turns into a terrifying sheet of polished ice. The city uses gravel instead of salt to provide traction because it is simply too cold for salt to melt the ice effectively. That means that every single car on this road in the winter is driving on a layer of crushed rocks. It is practically a rite of passage for an Alaskan driver to have a heavily cracked windshield. If you see a car up here without a cracked windshield, it usually means they just bought it yesterday. To survive the winter driving conditions, almost everyone swaps out their regular tires for heavy-duty metal-studded snow tires in October. When thousands of cars are driving on bare asphalt with metal studs, it transforms the sound of the city traffic into a constant, grinding, deafening crunch of metal on pavement. It literally chews deep ruts right into the asphalt of the highways. We are approaching Lake Otis Parkway. We are going to make a right turn, heading south onto Lake Otis. This is another massive north-south artery, a major corridor that moves thousands of people every hour. The name of this road carries a deep piece of pioneer history. It is named after Otis Goss, one of the earliest homesteaders in this region. In the 1920s and 30s, the federal government was desperate to establish an agricultural base in Alaska to support the growing railroad towns. They offered 160 acres of free land to anyone tough enough to claim it, clear it, and farm it. Back then, this area was considered the deep, terrifying bush. It was miles away from the safety of the downtown grid, completely swallowed by dense, bear-infested spruce forests. The early homesteaders had to physically hack their way through the trees, rip massive stumps out of the frozen ground by hand, and fight off the wild animals just to plant a small crop of potatoes or cabbage. They lived in crude log cabins, completely off the grid, surviving the brutal, dark winters entirely on their own grit and determination. Today, as you drive down this busy, paved parkway past modern medical clinics and apartment complexes, you are driving directly over the top of those original, hard-fought homestead plots. We are cruising south on Lake Otis, passing the massive UMed district to our east, which houses the state's largest hospital, the University of Alaska Anchorage, and Alaska Pacific University. This area is the intellectual and medical heartbeat of the city. Get ready for our next turn. We are going to make a left onto East 40th Avenue, heading east back into the residential neighborhoods. As we make the turn and move away from the heavy commercial traffic of Lake Otis, you will immediately feel the pace of the city slow down. We are entering the sprawling, established neighborhoods of East Anchorage. We are going to take 40th Avenue straight for about a mile. As we drive through these neighborhoods, I want you to look at the ground and think about what lies beneath these houses and these streets. Anchorage sits on a highly complex layer of clay, glacial silt, and in many places, localized permafrost. The ground here is not stable. When the massive Good Friday earthquake struck in 1964, the clay beneath many Anchorage neighborhoods essentially liquefied. It lost all of its structural integrity, causing entire subdivisions to slide down bluffs and collapse into the ocean. Because of that terrifying history, modern homes in Anchorage are built to some of the most rigorous, demanding seismic standards in the entire world. They are highly engineered to flex, sway, and absorb massive kinetic energy without shattering. The foundations are heavily reinforced, and the structures are tied together with specialized metal brackets designed to withstand violent shaking. Living in Alaska means accepting the fact that the earth beneath your feet is active, restless, and incredibly powerful. You do not just build a house here, you engineer a survival capsule. We're getting very close to our destination now. The road is going to curve, and we are going to navigate our way toward East 42nd Circle. As we make the final turns into this quiet, classic Alaskan cul-de-sac, take one last look at the massive birch trees towering over the houses. If you are finishing this drive in the summer, those trees are soaking up the manic, 24-hour energy of the midnight sun. The birds are singing at 2 in the morning, the gardens are exploding with color, and the entire neighborhood feels incredibly vibrant. People are out mowing their lawns and washing their cars in the middle of the night because the sun simply refuses to set. But if you are pulling into this circle in the dead of winter, the scene is completely different. The trees are bare and cracking in the -20-degree cold. The front yards are buried under 4 feet of snow, and the driveways are lined with heavy extension cords waiting to plug into the engine block heaters of the cars to keep the oil from freezing solid. The sky is dark for 20 hours a day, illuminated only by the streetlights and the occasional shimmering green explosion of the aurora borealis overhead. The people who live in these homes have to constantly adapt to the extreme, swinging pendulum of the Alaskan seasons. You have successfully driven a beautiful, complex loop through the heart of Anchorage. We started at a historic pioneer church in the South Addition, crossed the vital wildlife corridors of Chester Creek where the salmon swim right through the city, navigated the massive commercial centers built by Arctic Oil, drove the routes of the original, gritty homesteaders, and arrived right back here in the quiet resilience of an East Anchorage neighborhood. You have seen how the city constantly balances the demands of modern commerce with the terrifying, beautiful reality of the Alaskan wilderness. Thank you for riding along on this Dashcam tour, and we will see you on the next route.